Sylwia, powiedz nam proszę, ilu masz aktualnie followersów?
Około 600 000.
Today's uber-famous internet personalities have amassed growing power and intense cultural scrutiny. But who is the influencer really?
I'm an influencer. Are you an influencer?
The prevailing perception of the influencer trope is that they're lazy, famous due to luck rather than anything special about them, opportunistic and vapid, and above all, self-obsessed.
What have you been up to? Tell me everything.
Well, actually, I've been working on a book of essays.
Okay, I was obviously just asking to be polite, and it's very rude of you to assume that I care.
But we're also starting to see stories that give us a more realistic portrait of the modern influencer. Likely someone who's hard-working to the point of being stuck in a constant grind, anxious or insecure about being replaced by competitors.
So exhausting. It's very competitive. I take anti-anxiety pills, but I mean, who doesn't?
And creatively trapped by answering to sponsors who care only about the bottom line of their views and conversions.
Olympus Nutrition. Boją się, że ich produkty będą kojarzone z tego typu postami.
A recent standout narrative that gets to the heart of the modern influencer is sweat.
Jeżeli chcecie dostać tyle miłości, ile ja dzisiaj dostałam, przyjedźcie do Krakowa, mój następny trening Kraków po weekendzie, przyjedźcie, będę tam.
This new release, a much-talked-about hit at Cannes, is a fascinating portrait of the split personality of the modern influencer through the character of fitness influencer Sylwia. In public, she's the motivational personal trainer who inspires religious levels of rapture from fans whose lives she transforms. In private, she's a vulnerable, lonely young woman who has to live with the scarier realities of fame in an industry that lacks an established infrastructure to protect her.
Zorientowałam się, że mam stalkera.
Here's our take on the tragedy of the influencer, a human symbol of what we all may be losing by trading away our privacy for views.
Po prostu zrobiło mi się strasznie smutno. Po prostu też bym chciała mieć kogoś bliskiego, kogoś, kto...
Everything about you is a lie, and you pretend to be some cool LA chick, but you're full of
The common perception of the influencer in many of our minds is a cartoon, narcissistic, occasionally problematic, and famous for no real good reason. Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Gina Linetti is a send-up of the archetypal influencer, full of herself, over the top, and immune to self-doubt.
And then God, a woman, said, "Let there be Gina!"
She follows her whims to accrue millions of followers via her cult of personality, rather than through strategy or hard work.
I have an idea for a second book. It's a memoir, and it's made of memes, so it's called a memoir.
Meanwhile, Sweat investigates the reality of the day-to-day of an influencer who actually does attract a cult-like following like Gina's. As we see, it's a lifestyle that entails a lot of repetitive and isolating work. One of the early lines we hear Sylwia say is, and while she's just flattering a follower here, there's another level to these words, because she's well aware that in her field there are so many others waiting in the wings, seemingly able to do her job. Brooklyn Nine-Nine jokingly implies that this weird new age job of influencing is tailor-made for Gina's combination of superhuman confidence and middle school-esque obsession with popularity.
Complete overlap of ego and id. It's been theorized, but I never thought I'd see it.
The character's larger-than-life pre-existing personality
I feel like I'm the Paris of people.
Plays into the perception that the person on camera is the real person. But Sweat interrogates this conflation of the influencer's public and private selves.
Wszystkim się zawsze wydaje, że świat fitnessu jest taki kolorowy i radosny, a wcale tak nie jest do końca.
The movie opens with Sylwia's private moments before she faces her public, and we see the effort of having to build herself up into her persona. The film's mise-en-scène also establishes this split personality by mirroring Sylwia with the version of herself reflected back from her phone. And whereas a cartoon influencer like Gina can gain her following just by blindly following her impulses, when Sylwia impulsively releases a video that gets too real, she's professionally punished.
Jeden ze sponsorów się skarżył bardzo.
This bottom line moment reminds us that the influencer is, at its core, a solution to a capitalist problem. Over the last 2 decades, as consumers became fatigued with traditional forms of advertising, companies looked for people with followings to promote their products in a more authentic, organic way.
Self-marketing. If people want you, they'll want what you've got.
Whereas celebrities of the past were glamorously aloof, the influencer is expected to be completely accessible. This can spur a feeling that viewers are entitled to this person. In a number of these stories, the influencer character has a stalker, just as actual influencers have faced this scary reality.
This person was outside my house at 4 a.m. Over the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, I had been getting messages from this person on social media.
Yet their industry doesn't offer them much security relative to their level of exposure and vulnerability. So these narratives underline that we aren't sure how to properly care for these people, nor is our culture really interested in their mental health. Even Sylwia's family, after making fun of her career in this new profession they don't understand or respect, victim blame her for having a stalker.
Pukałeś do niego do okna, nie mogłeś przejść normalnie obok niego, przecież to było jego okno i jego auto, nie?
Influencers as a group have been the focus of intense scrutiny and criticism, in part due to a number of highly unrelatable, unlikable, high-profile behaviors and scandals by certain individuals.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
The general vitriol felt toward influencers in the abstract manifests in a subgenre of horror movies where influencers are the victims. In Shook, the essence of beauty vlogger Mia's character is fakeness.
I'm here for the super exclusive, invite-only red carpet for Sakani Cosmetics.
And hypocrisy. She's happy to performatively look after her sister's dog when there's a dog killer on the loose.
I just really feel like it's necessary to be selfless during this time.
But she didn't even help care for her dying mother because she was so focused on building her following. So the implication in this subgenre is that influencers bring punishment on themselves by being selfish, vacuous people, and the slashers targeting them are cathartic manifestations of a wider cultural hate.
I'm saying you were supposed to take care of a dog, and look what's happened.
I tried.
You tried? You mean by spending all your time texting your worthless friends?
There's a lot of blame projected onto the influencer if we perceive any disconnect between their two personas.
His ego is so big that he will think that everything is about him.
Or their online character doesn't come across as 100% authentic.
Stay-at-home mommy blogger, Sunrise cannot be this happy unless blending functional mushrooms in your almond latte is the grail we have all been seeking.
Yet, given that most of us share pieces of ourselves online, most of us also probably project a more flattering image than the messier person we are in our private moments, so the practice of chastising influencers for being fake serves the purpose of purging our fears that we too aren't living our most genuine existence.
It looks like he's got a lot to live for. He's eating food.
Or is he? Because is that just what he wants you to believe?
At the same time, what's common to both Gina's and Sylwia's stories is that as influencers, they take on a savior-like role for their viewers.
Over 1 million people are living their lives according to the Gina Commandments. They're like the 10 Commandments, only there's more and they're better.
This reflects the truth that however much we might criticize influencers, they're the role models that young people are increasingly looking to for guidance and frameworks to live their lives by.
Było super! Naprawdę jesteście cudowną kobietą.
I'm sort of famous for being almost famous.
The concept of the It Girl dates back to the popularity of Clara Bow, star of the movie It. While Bow was a movie star, she was a relatable kind, ushering in an appetite for audiences to see celebrities who were just like them.
She didn't identify with movie stars, she identified with her fans. She called them my wonderful fan friends. She was just one of them who had been elevated to be a movie star.
Meanwhile, over the decades, fame has also become explicitly divorced from traditional entertainment and taken on a performative, fictional quality. In the 60s, New York socialites like Edie Sedgwick, Candy Darling, and Baby Jane Holzer became Andy Warhol's superstars, largely through the pop artist's act of declaring them as such. In 1984, self-made celebrity Angeline bought up billboards in Hollywood and plastered them with her image and her name, creating a cult of personality out of thin air.
Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian acknowledged their debt to her.
After the rise of our era's definitive famous for being famous celebrity Paris Hilton and the sidekick who would surpass her, Kim Kardashian, narrativizing one's own life to capture the public imagination has become a lucrative, ubiquitous form of performance art.
When they look at these influencers and they think, wow, this is an amazing life, but people don't realize most of the time it's not real.
The reality around influencers today is that far from most being whimsical, fame-hungry narcissists, they tend to be canny entrepreneurs who collectively represent a burgeoning professional class.
The influencer category is a $1 billion industry, and it's projected to grow to $2.4 billion in just 2 years.
Much of the more toxic influencer behavior stems from economic factors, like a saturated market that makes people feel they need to resort to over-the-top, attention-seeking behavior for views. Even being called out for bad behavior, problematic language, or in some cases outright racism has become par for the course. Just another step in the influencer cycle, which is followed by the apology video.
I'm going to focus on what happened, the conclusions that I've come to, and most importantly, holding myself accountable for my own actions.
You guys are going to have 15 minutes to run anywhere you want on set and to film a 1-minute, no editing, apology video.
In Sweat, we meet Sylwia at the exhaustion and breaking point stage of the influencer cycle as she deals with the fallout from posting a video of her not very on-brand emotional breakdown. But her crisis and introspection don't lead to real change because the burnout and breakdown are yet more steps in the social media formula. After these feelings are documented, the figure reinvents themselves, and all this is transformed into more human entertainment.
I've had 3 nervous breakdowns since I started this job 3 years ago, which is par for the course. You know, time flies when you're breaking down.
When we leave Sylwia, she's right back where she started, performing for her core audience, as if real emotion is just something that needs to be publicly purged.
Się dowiedziałam, że będę mamą. To jest takie głupie, ale ja zaczęłam, wiesz, tak dzwonić do wszystkich, bo naprawdę byłam super szczęśliwa. No bo jaki to ma sens, jak się, wiesz, nie możesz tym podzielić?
Much of our culture's animosity towards influencers stems from our discomfort with the broader trends in social media, advertising, and consumption that have fundamentally altered all of our lives. Many of us are now feeling the impacts of excessive onlineness through increased anxiety, isolation, and issues with self-image. Consider the increase in online time during the COVID-19 pandemic. Americans spent an average of 82 minutes a day on social media in 2020, 7 minutes more than in 2019. And it's clear that this problem is likely to get worse. The sad irony of social media is that while it sells the promise of connecting us, it's damaging our ability to make real-life connections.
People don't even look up anymore. The sky could turn purple and you wouldn't notice for a month.
Sylwia exemplifies this paradox as someone a lot of people express love for online who privately questions whether any of her social media connections truly care about her at all.
Chciałabym usunąć moje konto na Instagramie, bo tak naprawdę nikt by za mną nie tęsknił. Ja to wiem.
Despite her fear and outrage towards her stalker, Sylwia relates to his feeling alone.
Ja tylko chciałem powiedzieć, że my jesteśmy podobni do siebie. Ja też chciałbym, żeby ktoś ze mną chodził za rękę.
Meanwhile, Ingrid Goes West explores this picture from the point of view of the so-called stalker.
Look, I'm not a psychopath or anything. I just want to be her friend.
Lost and lonely Ingrid pursues a friendship with Instagram influencer Taylor, convinced that the validation of friendship with this beautiful person will solve all her emotional problems. But being allowed into this exclusive world doesn't provide Ingrid with the true human bonds she needs. In a final ironic twist, Ingrid's sharing her rock bottom online.
I know there's something wrong with me, but I don't know how to fix it.
At last gets her the social media acceptance she's been seeking.
Thousands and thousands. Your inspiration, babe.
Yet this isn't a happy ending because it leaves us to assume that Ingrid will just keep looking for love in these wrong places. Meanwhile, in 8th grade, we can see how influencer culture trickles down to how young people interact with each other. Shy teenager Kayla copies influencer behavior she's seen,
Gucci.
Creating vlogs which, because she doesn't have an audience, end up being more like motivational speeches for herself.
Being yourself is like not changing yourself to impress someone else.
Warhol followed up his famous quote, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes, with the line, "In 15 minutes, everybody will be famous." And this was an accurate prediction of our current social media environment, with its proliferation of micro-influencers.
The very first hurdle to becoming an influencer is hitting 10,000 followers, but you're certified influencer, if you will, at around 100,000.
This vision of society with numerous gradations and levels of influence is exaggerated in Black Mirror's Nosedive, which depicts a world where everyone lives their lives according to their social ranking.
I see there's one standby seat on another plane leaving tonight. That's reserved for members of our Prime Flight program. You gotta be a 4.2 or over to qualify.
It's a scenario that pushes us to consider what a huge cost there may be to trading our privacy for a fully public life.
You know, maybe that was a bad call by us.
The loneliness of the influencer figure stems from the lack of a private life that's held sacred, off limits to others' eyes. Still, social media retains positive potential to bring people together and be used as a force for good.
Look at those pictures. You're the reason everybody's here, you know that. You're my new head of marketing.
Our world of micro-influencers does feel more democratic than older fame systems, with a lower barrier to entry for those outside of the mainstream or elite. Increasingly, we're also seeing influencers getting behind social causes, like sustainability influencer Manuela Barron, aka the Girl Gone Green, or social justice influencer Teresa Siagatonu. And more, stories are reflecting that social media is really a double-edged sword, depending on how you use it. We can't all be celebrities, but today we're encouraged to act like there's always a camera on us.
Feels like the whole world revolves around me somehow.
This makes it more important than ever to preserve the self you are when no one's watching. It's hard to stay true to that person in public, so the first step is taking the time to hold on to that private relationship with yourself.
Hey Kayla, it's you from 8th grade.
This video was made in collaboration with Mubi. In recent years, it's been refreshing to see creators start to tell new stories about the internet and influencers, making movies that venture beneath the typical social media facade. We highly recommend you check out Sweat, a real standout among these. After premiering at Cannes, this award-winning film is now streaming exclusively on Mubi. Sweat deconstructs our stereotypical idea of what an influencer is and shows the reality with compassion, the grueling schedule, the self-cannibalization for content, and the danger of parasocial relationships. It's a pulse-pounding character study told with the intensity of a thriller, and to celebrate the online release, Mubi is also presenting an exclusive Q&A with writer-director Magnus von Horn and star Magdalena Kolesnik alongside the film. Plus, Mubi hosts so many other movies that comment on our current cultural moment. Every day, Mubi premieres a new film. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. Right now, Mubi is offering our viewers 30 days free. So click the link in the description below to stream Sweat and their entire collection of hand-picked cinema.